Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. My name is Nick from Australia, and welcome back to the channel once again for your what'll be bloody Monday night, January 22nd, 2024. It is 8:32 p.m. on a Monday night. Hope everyone is doing well. Welcome to tonight's live stream, and tonight's live stream is going to be one player from your NRL club that needs to step up in 2024. Now, I'm not here to criticize the players. I'm just going to give you my honest opinion on one player from each club that I feel needs to step up going into this new season that is only about 40 days away. So we're getting closer and closer to round one. As always, if you're new around here, don't forget to like the stream, subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't already. If you're a new viewer, welcome to the channel. And thank you for tuning in once again. Hello to the live chat. We've got Josh Rabbitohs 2024, SS Storm fan, Aussie Mozzie, Tom Mitchell, Jason Reader, everyone that's tuning in. I hope everyone is well. Welcome back to the channel. Rightio. We might as well get straight into it. We got 17 players to get through, one from each club. So here we go. One player from your NRL club that needs to step up in 2024. We're going to start off with my team, the Cowboys. As you know, I'm a Cowboys supporter. And I'm going to be honest here. Chad Townsend needs to step up, man. Now, I'm a fan of Chad Townsend. I think he's been a pretty good pickup for the Cowboys. I mean, 2022, he had a very good season. 2023 was a bit of a down season. Didn't have the greatest season. It was a little bit disappointing. I think he needs to really step up going into this new season, man. He's under a lot of pressure. Obviously, Jake Clifford's now back at the Cowboys. He'll be putting a lot of pressure on Chad Townsend. We have the young halfback in the system by the name of Tom Duffy. He will also be putting a lot of pressure on Chad Townsend. So, and there's also the opportunity of potentially moving Tom Dearden a halfback and Tom Chester to 5'8" or something. So, like, Townsend, for me, is under a lot of pressure. He really needs to step up. He's one of the co-captains, and I don't think his position is as safe as it was last year. So he needs a big year for mine. So Chad Townsend, for me, really needs to step up for the Cowboys in 2024. On to the next team. We'll continue with the Queensland teams, and we'll head to the Broncos. And I think it's Corey Oates. Corey Oates. We all know he's been at the Broncos his entire career. He was on the wing for the Broncos last season on the left-hand side, as always. He got dropped about 2 weeks before the final series. Jesse Arthurs took his place. I'm telling you, man, Corey Oates, who just re-signed with the Broncos as well, you know, he's a one-club player. There's a lot of young talent up at the Broncos that are really pushing that wing spot. And I think Corey Oates is under a lot of pressure, man, going into a new season. Oates is another year older. There's a lot of young talent up there that's getting quicker and better. So, for me, Corey Oates is under a lot of pressure, man. And I think if there's one player for Brisbane that needs to step up, I think it's him. The Broncos just come off a grand final, and majority of them were good. So, I think Corey Oates is the one here that needs to really step up in 2024. Now we go from the Broncos to the new kids on the block, the Dolphins, in their second year. And for me, it's the big man, the guy that loves big hits, man, Felise Kaufusi. What's happened to Kaufusi? He went from a state of origin back rower, damaging, terrifying the opposition, terrifying his opposition back rower or half. Now he's just, I don't know what he is now, Felise Kaufusi. He was very hit and miss last season, Kaufusi. I'm so intrigued to see how he goes this year. The Dolphins are going to need his leadership and experience to really go well. I think Kaufusi needs a big year. He's been overtaken in state of origin by the likes of David Fafita, Jeremiah Nanai, Corey Horsburgh. There's a lot of guys that have, overtaken Kaufusi. So, Kaufusi, I'm not sure what to expect from him in 2024, but obviously he's a senior player at the Dolphins. He needs to step up, I reckon, in 2024, man. I'm not sure how many years Kaufusi's actually got left in him, but I didn't want to pick a young player because I don't think it'd be fair to target too many young players. But I feel like Kaufusi, who was in that Melbourne Storm system consistently in the Origin team, he needs a big fucking year, man. I'm telling you. Kaufusi's on this list. He needs to step up. On to the Gold Coast, AJ Brimson. It's so easy to pick this one out. Like, I could name probably about 5 to 7 Titans players that need to step up. But AJ Brimson, for me, is one of the main ones. He is one of the main players. He had a really poor season last year. I know he had a few injuries and whatnot, but even when he was fit, he was doing nothing for the Gold Coast. He's on good money up at the Titans as well. He's got a good contract. Apparently, he's going to be playing in the centers this year, which I just shake my head over. I don't think that's the right move. Yeah, Brimson needs to step up, man. He's been up there for a very long time now. He's been there since he started his career, and he doesn't really stand out. I feel like there's a lot of players at the Gold Coast that have played better than AJ Brimson. And yeah, he was shit at Origin level too. But the only reason why he was in the Origin team was because Queensland had a few players injured. So Brimson, I think he really needs to step up for the Gold Coast this year. So for the Titans, I think it's Brimson. Moving on to the nation's capital, the Raiders, Josh Papalii or Papalii. What happened to Josh Papalii? He was the best prop in the game a couple of years ago. Now he's barely able to make 5 games, 5 games in a row. I know he's had injuries. I get it. Everyone gets injured. Older players get injured. It happens. But even when Papalii was healthy, he just looked a bit slower, looked a bit lethargic. I don't know, man. Josh Papalii, for me, is under a lot of pressure. I think he's on a really good contract as well, a bit like Brimson. He's on very good money. He's a prop forward. He needs a bloody big season, man. Papalii, I'm a big fan of him. I think he needs a big year, man. His form was that bad. He was overlooked in the Origin as well. A bit like with what's happened to Felise Kaufusi. Papalii needs a big year, man. I don't know what's happened to him, but Josh Papalii was like a 9, 8 out of 10 front rower. He was up here. Papalii's probably like a 5, 6 out of 10 now. He's dropped about 3 or 4 levels, man. So for the Raiders, obviously there's a few players you could name, but I think Josh Papalii really needs to step up in 2024, man. Now, moving on from the Green Machine, we're going to head to Brookvale. We're going to go to Manly. The Manly Warringah Seagulls. It's got to be Josh Schuster, right? It's got to be Josh Schuster. Josh Schuster, ball playing forward, played 5'8" last year. That experiment was an object failure. As I predicted, I said he would not work at 5'8" and he'll end up in the back row. And look what's happening. It's exactly what I predicted 12 months ago to what's happening now. Now, look, I do criticize Josh Schuster quite a lot. I have in the past. I've said a lot of things about him. But, I do like Josh Schuster. I think he's very talented. He's got good skills. He's a very talented big man. But, again, a bit like a few of the other players I've mentioned, Schuster's got a very nice contract. He's on good money. He needs to be playing a lot better than what his contract is. He's playing levels below what he's actually getting paid to do. Like, he's a player that should be an 8 out of 10 every week, but consistently most weeks we get Josh Schuster, we get a 5 out of 10, or we get an absolute bludger of a game from him. I like Schuster. I'm really intrigued to see how he goes with Luke Brooks this season, but for me, Schuster is the one at Manly that needs to step up. I think guys like Cherry Evans are safe. Turbo's had injuries, whatever. Schuster needs a big year, man. So for me, for Manly, I think Josh Schuster's one that needs to step up. Newcastle Knights, it's Daniel Saifiti. What happened to Saifiti as well? Jacob Saifiti is 5 levels above Daniel Saifiti. It's absolutely it's so obvious. Like you look at Daniel Saifiti, a couple of years ago, State of Origin prop forward, potentially a captain of Newcastle. Jacob Saifiti is so much better. Daniel has fallen away a little bit. He needs a big season. And again, Daniel Saifiti, he's still, fairly young. His best years are ahead of him. Last year, he didn't really stand out that well. Newcastle were going great last year, but Daniel wasn't really, a complete standout. So we'll see how he goes this year, but I think Daniel Saifiti really needs to step up in 2024. Moving on to the Bulldogs and Matt Burton. Ever since Matt Burton's gone there, he's been inconsistent. I know the Dogs are shit. I know they haven't been good. They've been very average. But Matt Burton seems to have a very great standout game every 6 weeks. He doesn't do it consistently. I know he's playing at a team that's trying to rebuild and trying to get better. But, for someone like Matt Burton, he's a big-name player. He's played plenty of big games in the past. He's won a grand final. He needs to be playing a lot better at the Bulldogs. He needs to be stepping up. Needs to be taking that team to the next level. He obviously hasn't been able to do that, so he needs a lot more help. So I think Matty Burton's one that needs to step up. 2023, all he did was put up those big bombs, and it didn't run the ball as much. So, we'll see what happens with Matt Burton this year, but he's one for the Dogs that I think needs to really step up. Absolutely no doubt about it. Now let's move on to the Bulldogs. Big rivals, man. They're big rivals. The Parramatta Eels. And I think Junior Paulo is the one, man. Junior Paulo. Now, don't get me wrong. Junior Paulo had a pretty good season at Parramatta last year. He had a pretty good year. I think he averaged like 150 run meters. So he was doing his job. But what we've seen from Junior Paulo is he tends to get a little bit lazy, doesn't put in a lot of, great effort in defense sometimes. And, Regan Campbell-Gillard was so much better than him last year. So was Jermaine Hopgood, Ryan Madison, Bryce Cartwright. They all probably had better years than Junior Paulo. Junior Paulo is a potential player that should be in the State of Origin team for New South Wales. Great leader, great ball-playing prop. Paulo's probably a top 5 prop when he's at his absolute best. So he needs a big season. I think majority of Parramatta supporters will probably agree with that. I could have mentioned Will Penasini. I could have mentioned Dylan Brown. I could have mentioned a few other players. But I feel like Junior Paulo is one that I reckon if he cops a little bit of criticism in the media, he will come out and explode. So Junior Paulo's, for me, I think he needs a big season from the Eels. I think he needs a big season. What is going on in the live chat? Hopefully that situation gets sorted out because I don't want to have to put anyone in timeout. But anyway, continuing. Melbourne Storm, it's obviously Christian Welch. All right. This is going to sound harsh. But again, you guys want to hear the truth. You guys want me to be honest as possible. I'm going to say this. Christian Welch last season was absolutely fucking pathetic. Christian Welch last season was a complete fucking joke. And I thought his season last year was one of the worst from a fucking prop forward I've seen out of Melbourne. Welch last year was disgusting, man. He did absolutely nothing. When it was the finals, he was absolute dog shit. I remember the game against Brisbane. I think he ran for about 40 meters, which was just what the F. I know Christian Welch had a terrible ACL injury a couple of years back, and he's obviously still trying to move on from that. But for a bloke that's still 29 years old, Welch has still probably got 4 years left in him. What kind of season did he have last year? That was pathetic. Welch needs to step up more than anyone. He's played Origin. He's had big seasons in the past. Christian Welch, man, he needs a big season, man. He's a 29-year-old prop. He's probably got 3 or 4 years left in him. He needs a big season, man. I'm looking forward to seeing how he goes. But last year, Welch was disgusting. It was horrible, man. He needs a big season. So for Melbourne, it's Christian Welch. Dragons, Zac Lomax. Zac Lomax. When are we going to see Zac Lomax fulfill his potential? When's it going to happen? I've been waiting for years for Zac Lomax. It kind of reminds me of Luke Brooks. Luke Brooks, come on the scene early on, looked like a gun, struggled for so many years. Now Lomax is in his, 7th season, 6th season. It's been horrible. Absolutely horrible. Lomax is like, if there's a definition of an inconsistent center, it is without a doubt Zac Lomax. He is the most inconsistent center in the game. 1 week he'll do an awesome flick. Rabbitohs will score 2 tries and Lomax will kick 4 from 4 from the sideline. Other times he'll bomb 4 tries with a stupid flick over the sideline, or he'll bomb a try or 2. Lomax is so hot and cold. I can't get a read on him. And that's the reason why he needs to step up in 2024, because Lomax is not fulfilling his potential. So for the Dragons, it's definitely Zac Lomax. Moving on. Few teams to go. Moving on to the Warriors, Mitch Barnett. Now, for the Warriors, majority of them had great seasons last year. They really did. But I feel like Barnett, he's probably the one that stands out. Fanil Blake averages, 180 plus meters a game. Tohu Harris really stood out for him. Jackson Ford had a great year. Marani Okoro did well. Tom Ale, Tavago, they all do their part. Barnett just didn't stand out. I mean, he had a good season last year, but I feel he could go another level. He could step up a bit more. He could provide a bit more for the Warriors. I do like Barnett. I think he's a very good player. He did play well last year. He had a good season, but he could do more to help Fanua Blake, to help Tohu Harris, to help these guys do more. So Barnett for me is one that needs to step up for the Warriors. West Tigers, give me Isaiah Papalii. This is the easiest one of the lot. Papalii went from one of the best back rowers in the game at Parramatta to an absolute joke at the West Tigers. I don't know what Isaiah Papalii did last season. He was absolutely terrible. He was nowhere near his best. I'll give him a little bit of credit where he may have played 20% better at the back end of the year. But Isaiah Papalii last season was he was definitely not what he was at Parramatta. Papalii, he needs to step up, man. I think he's a very good second rower. He's a great international player for New Zealand. But he needs a big season. He needs to really stand up, man, for the Tigers. It's Isaiah Papalii. Moving on. 4 teams to go. Roosters. Give me James Tedesco. But first, let me just have a mouthful of my Nice can of Coke. Beautiful. Roosters. Tedesco, man. Like, I've spoken about it on the channel before. A lot of Rooster supporters will kiss ass on social media. Oh, don't criticize Tedesco. You can't say that about Tedesco. Listen here. To all the Roosters fans out there that want to praise Tedesco, it's not 2019, 2020 anymore. Tedesco is no longer the best fullback in the game. He's no longer the number one fullback in the game. There are fullbacks in the competition that have outdone Tedesco. They have outplayed Tedesco. And look, Tedesco's still a freak, don't get me wrong, but he's not the player he was 3 to 4 years ago. We need, we saw in Origin how bad he was. We saw for the Kangaroos how pathetic he was in that game where it was 34-0 New Zealand, whatever the score ended up being. Tedesco is a freak, and I have no doubt he'll be better this year. But last year, he was so disappointing. He didn't have a great year last year. He really needs to step up. And, he's the captain of the Roosters, a very big club, and he needs a big year, man. Tedesco needs a very big year. Now, moving on from Tedesco, we go to Latrell Mitchell with the Rabbitohs. This is an obvious one. Latrell Mitchell, look, he's been good at South, but he hasn't been as good as he was at the Roosters. Now, obviously, that's because he's changed positions, moved to fullback. I think South supporters will agree that it's been a little bit frustrating with Latrell because of injury in a couple of things, but last year was a weird one because he had a really good start to the year. He was probably top 3 fullback by the time he got to round 12. Then he got hurt, missed Origin, didn't really get back to his best, didn't really get going at all. I'd say Latrell Mitchell's best moment was obviously 2022 where they beat the Roosters in the finals. But last year, Latrell was, he was injured and, things didn't go to plan. But with the money that Souths are paying him, obviously isn't as big as, other clubs would pay Latrell. But Latrell needs a big year. He needs to step up. He needs a big season. I think he's going to explode. I'm a big fan of Latrell. So, I didn't really want to put him on this list because I do like Latrell. But, you got to be fair. He needs to really step up in 2024. So, looking forward to seeing how Latrell goes. Cronulla, Talakai. Big see for Talakai, man. I think Talakai is overrated. Now, look, I've met Talakai in person. Very nice bloke, very nice guy. Humble dude. But Talakai, man, left center at Cronulla, not as consistent as other centers. Doesn't really stand out. I feel like second row's Talakai's best position. I don't know, man. I don't know. Talakai is a weird one because if you remember that game, he absolutely destroyed Morgan Harper, and then there was a game against Katoni Staggs. Katoni Staggs destroyed Talakai. Talakai just hasn't really recovered since. I don't know what it is, man, but he needs a huge season. I really do believe Talakai needs a big season. He's a big body. He's a big guy. I still don't think he should be playing center. I feel like second row is his spot, but hey, he'll start the year in the centers. If he's going to play center all year, maybe he needs to drop a couple kilos just to get fitter so he can catch, the other centers in the competition. But Talakai needs a big season, man. He needs to step up. And for Penrith, look, there isn't a right or wrong with this, but because, they've won the last 3 grand finals and they've been so consistent. But if there's one player that I think needs to step up a little bit, it's probably Mitch Kenny. Mitch Kenny from Penrith. I mean, he does fantastic in defense. Probably, I'd say Mitch Kenny's probably a top 10 defender in the game, especially dummy half. I think Kenny's a great defender, but attack-wise, that's something that Mitch Kenny could improve on his game. Do a bit more in attack. Very quiet in attack, man. Like, obviously, it gives the ball to Cleary, Luai, Edwards. They all do their thing. But it'd be nice to see Kenny do a bit more in attack. He's a solid player. Like, with all due respect to Mitch Kenny, if he were on the market tomorrow and there's 4 other hookers next to him, would I buy Kenny? Probably not. But if you want a good defender, if you want someone that can make tackles and do a job, then, Mitch Kenny's your guy. But I think Mitch Kenny could do more in attack. So I'll throw him in there for the Panthers. But ladies and gentlemen, that pretty much wraps up all of the players. One play from each club that needs to step up in 2024. That's pretty much the list. If you guys enjoyed tonight's live stream, make sure you like the stream and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to get on out of here. Hope you guys enjoyed tonight. And remember, tomorrow night is the return of the Corner Post podcast. Me and Cody will be back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. New South Wales time. The podcast returns for 2024. Anyway, guys, have a phenomenal night. Take care of yourselves. And I'll see you tomorrow for the podcast. Until then, bye-bye.